When the mama sang us to sleep, but now what's to stop?
Hi there guys, it's LivyBoy2603 here, and today's video I'll be looking at the League 1 table every week, so at the end of each Saturday what the table looked like. Now we already know that Livingston have won the league and Brecon have also been promoted to the Championship, and Stenhousemuir got relegated and Peterhead have been relegated via the playoff. So we're now going to look at every week in between the 6th of August till the last game of the season to see what teams were close to winning, what teams had a massive collapse, and what team have done the greatest from their starting position. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. So at the end of week 1, Livingston were top of the table, followed by Alloa. Now I should quickly mention the fact that the top 4 after week 1 was Livingston, Alloa, Airdrie Onions and Brecon. That's the way the season ended. Peterhead were bottom, Steny were 7th, that's probably the highest they've been all season. That's not a joke towards Steny fans, it's the truth. And Albion were 5th, so it's a strange way. And after week 2, Alloa were top of the league on goal difference. Now, if you look at the bottom half, Stranraer had scored 3 goals but conceded 10, and Peterhead had yet to score but had conceded 7. So already it wasn't looking too good a season for Peterhead. East Fife sneak into the playoffs, so you can already tell it's going to be a tight league, but you can never tell after only 2 weeks, because at the end of the thing, it takes about 9 games before the table starts looking the way you expect it to look. At the end of this week, Livingston go back to top of the table on goal difference. Shows you what a tight league it's going to be for the title. And Stranraer have dropped down to 10th with Stenhousemuir in 9th. So, the table's changing. Peterhead got their first point, and Stranraer and Steny were yet to get points by this stage of the season. And as Brecon and Alloa's unbeaten run continued, Livingston's came to an end after a 1-0 defeat to Queen's Park. Now, I should also mention that Stenhousemuir drawn, so they got 1 point, and Stranraer once they get 3 points. So the bottom 2 are Steny and Peterhead. That will be very familiar throughout the remainder of this video, but still quite interesting looking at the table at this stage. So Alloa's unbeaten run in all competitions did come to an end after Livingston beat them, so they were now in even points with Alloa. Alloa were only ahead on alphabetic order, so both of them were a point behind Brecon. So after 5 games played, Steny were adrift, Peterhead, Stranraer at the bottom. The table was starting to shape up in the way you'd expect it to shape up at the start of the season. After Livingston beat Brecon, Alloa went top of the league once again, only by alphabetic order, so when a team begins with A, they've got better chance of being top of the league than a team that begins with L or B. So the table's really starting to look like a 3-horse race for Alloa, Livingston and Brecon. And there's Peterhead and Stenhousemuir at the bottom 2 teams still. At this stage, Livingston dropped down to 3rd with Alloa still staying top, and Peterhead, Stenhousemuir were still the bottom 2 teams in the league, and not much really changed apart from the fact that Stranraer, who had been struggling, had moved up to 5th. Brecon then regained their lead at the top of the table, being a point clear of Livingston and 3 points clear of Alloa. Then Stenhousemuir did overtake Peterhead at this stage of the season. Albion and Airdrie were 5th and 6th, and East Fife were in the playoff position as it stood at that moment. After 9 games played, Livingston dropped down to 3rd with their 3rd defeat of the season, but they were only a point behind Alloa and Brecon, so it was really shaping up to be tight. Peterhead did regain their advantage over Stenhousemuir at the bottom part of the table. After Livingston beat Alloa, Livingston moved up to 2nd, and with Livingston playing Brecon the following week, it was shaping up to be a massive game. Queen's Park did drop down into the relegation playoff place, with Peterhead moving up to 8th, and Albion Rovers were in the top 4. After beating Brecon 3-0, Livingston moved to the top position in League 1, where they would remain until the end of the season. Peterhead moved up to 6th, and East Fife and Queen's Park looked to be fighting to not be in the relegation playoffs. After 12 games played, Livingston's advantage over Brecon City remained 2 points, but they now had a 4-point advantage over Alloa. Alloa suffered a mid-season collapse. East Fife were now in the relegation playoff, and Airdrie Onions managed to sneak into the promotion playoff position. Livingston remained 2 points clear of Brecon with a game in hand. Now I will quickly like to mention, if there's any midweek games, that will just be added on to the table when I check it on that Saturday, so if a team jumps up 6 points, you now know why. Now, Stenhousemuir were still a few points adrift at the bottom. Airdrie Onions, Alloa, Brecon, Livingston were still the top 4 teams, so not much has really changed there. So yeah, quite an exciting season it was shaping up to be. And out of nowhere, Airdrie Onions move into 2nd, only a point behind Livingston, although Livingston did have a game in hand. Albion Rovers were slowly but surely catching up in Alloa, and Stenhousemuir were still the only team yet to break double digits in points for the season. So we skip ahead 2 weeks because the week before was a Scottish Cup weekend, and Livingston finally break 30 points, but they're still only a point clear of Airdrie with a game in hand. Stenhousemuir are still on 9 points, and Queen's Park had moved into 5th, overtaking Albion Rovers and only 4 points behind 4th place Alloa Athletic. So guys, this is one of the weeks I believe won the league for Livingston. Airdrie Onion's got bet 5-0 of Stenhousemuir, who finally made it onto double digits for points. But that day, Brechin lost and Airdrie lost, so that gave Livingston a bit of motivation as we won. So we moved 4 points clear of Airdrie with a game in hand. So going into a week, bear in mind we were playing our game in hand, we were looking in a very, and I mean very good position for being 10 points clear the following week after playing Airdrie Onion. So after Livingston won their game in hand against Stenhousemuir 4-0 and bet Airdrie 2-0 at the Tony Macaroni Arena, Livingston were 10 points clear of Airdrie Onions in second place. Stenhousemuir were catching up on Stranraer, Peterhead had moved down to 8th, and Alloa were still somehow in the playoff zone, but only 3 points behind Queen's Park. This was shaping out to be a very exciting league for all teams involved in the league. Now on Christmas Eve, Airdrie Onions did bring it back to only 7 points, and they had a goal difference that was no longer negative. Brechin remained in 3rd, and Queen's Park were now in even points with Alloa Athletic. The playoffs were shaping up to be a very interesting battle for the later half of the season. A week later and the gap was still 7 points, but Airdrie had the game in hand. Was this their chance to bring the gap down to 4 points? Queen's Park moved 3 points behind Alloa, and Stenhousemuir, who were in 10th place, were only 1 point behind 9th place Peterhead. What a season. Airdrie lost their game in hand and drew the following week, making Livingston's lead 9 points clear. Stenhousemuir were now 2 points behind Stranraer, and Alloa had moved up to 2nd and Brechin had dropped down to 4th. This was a big week on Alloa's push for 2nd. Livingston versus Albion Rovers was postponed, but somehow Livingston managed to keep their 9 point lead with a game in hand. Now this was the luck that Livingston needed and had all season. Stenhousemuir did move off the bottom spot into 9th at a point ahead of Stranraer. Peterhead were in 8th place, and it was still Alloa, Airdrie, Brechin, Livingston in the top 4. Livingston's lead at the top of the table remained 9 points, but now there was only 3 points between 8th and 4th, and this is what made this league one of the tightest leagues, and Stranraer were still bottom 3 points behind Stenhousemuir. What a league, what a league. League 1 was now in February, and the league leaders Livingston suffered their first draw of the season. That's right, it took us till February to get a draw against Alloa, and that draw moved Airdrie Onions into 2nd place. Livingston now had a 10 point clear lead at the top, with Stenhousemuir remaining 9th and Stranraer remaining 10th and Peterhead in 8th. What a league. Now in this week, Livingston did draw to Stranraer, who moved up to 9th. That's right, you wait so long for one draw then two come at the same time. So that moves Stenhousemuir back down to 10th, and Livingston now had an 11 point lead over Airdrie and Alloa. Alloa Athletic moved into 2nd, but Livingston now had a 12 point clear lead over 2nd. East Fife were now in the top 4. Stenhousemuir were still 10th, but were now on even points with Stranraer. This was shaping up to be on the tightest leagues, and look at Brechin dropping down to 6th. Alloa Athletic closed the gap to 9 points. Livingston still had a game in hand, and East Fife somehow managed to remain in the top 4. Unbelievable. The gap at the top went to 7 points. Livingston still have a game in hand. There was only 3 points between 7th place and 10th place. East Fife moved up to 3rd and Airdrie dropped down to 4th. Oh my goodness me, what a league. Livingston won their game in hand over Albion Rovers, but did lose to East Fife. So Livingston were 7 points clear of Alloa. East Fife were still in 3rd. Airdrie were 4th, and Albion and Stenhousemuir were taking up the bottom 2 spots of the League 1 table. Livingston's lead at the top of the table did become a 9 point lead. East Fife stayed 3rd, Brechin came into 4th, knocking Airdrie Onions into 5th, and Alloa remained 2nd, with Stenhousemuir being at the bottom. After Livingston winning a midweek game and a game against Airdrie, Livingston won 63 points. Alloa did win a midweek game and did draw a match, so Livingston were 11 points clear of Alloa. Peterhead and Stenhousemuir were the bottom 2 teams. Brechin were up to 3rd, East Fife dropped down to 4th, and Queen's Park were challenging to get in the playoffs along with Airdrie Onions. After 31 games played, Livingston were just 1 point away from clinching the League 1 title. Stenhousemuir were still bottom of the league, but it was now Brechin and East Fife that were still taking the playoff position, with Alloa 2nd, but Queen's Park were not far behind Airdrie. This was shaping up to be a very good end to the season at both halves of the table, the bottom and the top half. After beating Alloa 2-1, Livingston had done it. Livingston had clinched the League 1 title. Alloa was 2nd, Airdrie were 3rd, Brechin moved into the top 4, so East Fife and Queen's Park were outside it, but they were only 3 points away from 3rd. Stenhousemuir and Peterhead still occupied the bottom 2 halves of the table. Albion Rovers weren't far behind Queen's Park. Champions Livingston continued their unbeaten run in the last few games. Queen's Park were up to 3rd. Peterhead were starting to break away from Stenhousemuir, but Peterhead were only 3 points behind 8th place Stranraer. It was shaping up to an interesting end to the season. The playoff positions were once again completely turned round. Brechin and East Fife took the playoff positions, with Airdrie and Queen's Park being just outside it. Steny brought points back against Peterhead, and Livingston, the champions, did win once again, but Alloa had at this point more or less secured a playoff position. And there was another twist in the tale. This week, Airdrie and Brechin were both in playoff positions. Alloa had secured their playoff positions, and Stenhousemuir had overtaken Peterhead, so going into the last day, Peterhead were 10th. And the final table of League 1 looked like this. Livingston did win the league. Alloa came second. Airdrie and Brechin got the playoff places in 3rd and 4th. East Fife came 5th. Queen's Park came 6th. Stranraer came 7th. Albion came 8th. Peterhead came 9th. They did eventually get relegated in the League 1 playoffs by Forfar 7-2 in aggregate. And Stenhousemuir did come 10th, meaning they got automatic relegation into League 2. So Livingston and Brechin are in the Championship next season, and Peterhead, Stenhousemuir are in League 2. So guys, I do hope you enjoyed that video. Now this was me trying to look at the league table, so if you supported any team in League 1 or you just like football, I do hope you enjoyed this video. So guys, please don't forget to leave a like, because this video did take me quite a long time to make. But anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to leave a like. Do subscribe if you're new around here, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.